Welcome to TD Aquatic on another episode. Today we're looking at building this 60cm tank brought to you by BioEco, an excellent quality tank. For today's project we'll be using the master soil substrate together with the Mekong Driftwood. Now this driftwood have a very nice texture which is great for this application. Let's get into it. Let's start with a nice layer of substrate. Remember, we can always add and remove as we go. I always like to start my tank with a nice layer of substrate so that I can build the foundation which will hold most of my scape. In my previous episode, you know that I like to use large rocks to build a foundation. In this case, I've done the same, however, with the addition of driftwood here and here, just to hold up the substrate. Now I went ahead and put in some foreground rocks for decoration and also to stop the substrate from spilling to the front. As you can see, it's important to fill up your foundation so that substrate won't spill forward. So over here I have a large rocks which will hold up most of my substrate and also give it that level that I desired. This driftwood here hold most of the substrate from spilling forward, and just go along and add in the smaller rocks just to stop everything from falling apart. The only addition is this large piece here which will give that triangular shape that I wanted for this design, and it will cover most of the foreground. The next challenge is to balance up the scape. So as you can see earlier, we have added a piece of driftwood here just to give that triangular shape. Now the other side, I have found another piece which going that way. Now with this piece here, I was fortunate enough to find a piece with two triangular shape attached, but you can make something like this with two additional small pieces. It will give the same effect. But so far you can see that the scape has balance. The next step is to build up the foreground. So as you can see, to make the scape with more depth, you need to create a large foreground, which is what I've done here. I'm trying to build a root system going this way, moving forward, so that it gives the back piece a bit more depth. It's just a simple two pieces of wood stacked on top of each other, facing forward. Now the important thing is to give yourself enough room to go through with your fingers. That will help with future maintenance later, especially when you're building foreground. So even though the scape looking good so far, I find that this viewpoint is too exposed and it's too large, so therefore I will try to build up and cover as much of these areas I can. What I've done is I've got this piece of triangular driftwood here, which will cover half of the area, and then we'll continue to build forward at the back. So ideally I should have a very small singular viewpoint somewhere on the left hand side. So now that entire exposed area is covered, so I inserted two large pieces of driftwood, that one and one at the back, just to give it a bit more depth. As you can see, the whole area has now been covered. So what we do next, it will fill up with substrate and rocks just to build that height even more. And there we have it. I have put in more substrate at the back to bring up the level, put a piece of rock there to stop the substrate from falling forward. Everything is now connected and I can see the viewpoint is somewhere there. Most of these pieces will cover the entire exposed area. I will work more toward the front area there and a bit more there, and continue to add in the detail and maybe a path going to the back. But so far I think we have covered the viewpoint very well in this scape. I've gone ahead and laid down some detailed rocks around the scape just to have a feel of how this scape gonna turn out. but the main purpose of that is just to know where my sand path gonna be. After laying it down, I have now come to a conclusion that I should have a sand path going this way, all the way here, and maybe around here and down there, and we'll be finished at the front. Initially, I wanted to have a sand path going down this way and all the way down, but as you can see, sometime when you scape, your intention may be one way, but the material that you got may dictate you to try a different method, or the result may be different to what you expected. So in this case, my sand path has gone completely the other direction. So note that I have now laid more rocks just to fill up the gaps. Also note that I have topped up some substrate up here as well, just to bring it level to the way that I like it, so that I can further lay down the sand path a bit later on. But so far all the rocks are there. We'll add in further details a bit later after we lay down the sand path and see how it goes. Okay, so here we are. I add in more rocks details, glued down well, because the last thing I want is before I add in the sand, everything will collapse. So therefore now is the best time to start gluing everything down so that we can go and add in the sand. You don't want them to mix together. If everything falls, it will be quite unattractive. So therefore ensure you glue down everything before the next step, which is adding the sand. Okay, so I have added the sand path. Don't worry if it's too thick at the moment. I will thin it out with finer rocks details, but at the moment, as you can see, there's a long path traveling, and I like how it's being cut off at this stage. It looks like it's going through this whole system of tunnel before it's coming out this way. So that's what I really like so far. Give it more depth, so hope you like it as well. Let's add in further detail to bring this path to life. Here she is, all done. I have added all the details. These are small crushed rocks which I place across the path and sprinkle some across the whole scape. The only thing left to do is super gluing everything down. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Now the only thing to take note from this episode is that ensure you leave a 1 finger gap across the whole scape so that you can do maintenance a lot more easier. Hope you enjoyed this episode and see you in the next one. Bye.